Welcome back to the Malaysia Money Matters show. It's January 8th, 2025, and we're diving into, well, some company updates and economic indicators,
Yeah.
things that could signal some really interesting investment opportunities. So are you ready to explore some potential moves in the Malaysian market?
Yeah, let's do it. There's a lot going on right now. Takeovers, record sales figures.
For sure. So let's jump right into it. Some company news, stuff that could signal some investment opportunities. First up is Malaysia Airports Holdings, or MAHB. Looks like there's been a big change in ownership there.
Yeah, that's right. Gateway Development Alliance, or GDA, has taken control. They've got some really big names in that consortium. The Employees Provident Fund, Khazanah National BHD, even groups backed by BlackRock, and the Abu Dhabi Investment Authority.
Wow. Now that's a power play. So what does this mean for MAHB and for potential investors?
Well, after KWAP accepted GDA's offer, it was RM11 per share. They now hold almost 83% of MAHB. MIDF is saying that investors should accept the offer. They're citing an 18% premium over their estimated fair value. And get this, a 125% premium over the latest net asset per share.
Those are some big numbers. So what's GDA's plan? Are they going to flip the company, or are they in it for the long term?
Well, their goal, at least what they've said, is to make MAHB a long-term growth company. They're going to focus on things like infrastructure upgrades at airports, improving passenger services, and making airline connectivity better.
Okay, interesting. Now for something a little bit more exciting. Perodua just announced some record-breaking numbers.
Oh, they did. 2024 was a big year for them. They had all-time highs for both vehicle sales and production. 358,102 vehicles sold, and almost 368,100 produced.
That's amazing, especially with all the new car brands coming into the market.
Yeah, and their CEO is saying that this success is because of their expanded capacity. And he's pretty optimistic about 2025 as well. He's predicting that the 2024 total industry volume will be more than 814,000 units from Malaysia. And Perodua is expected to be 44% of that.
That's crazy. That's market domination. Okay, next up we've got Swift Haulage. They're making a move into cold chain logistics, which has been pretty hot lately.
Yeah, it's a smart move. The demand for temperature-controlled storage and transportation is definitely rising. They've partnered with their major shareholder, JWD Asia Holding from Singapore, to make a new joint venture. It's called Swift Cold Chain SDN BHD.
So they're not going at it alone.
Nope. Swift Haulage will own 51% of the venture.
Yeah.
But they're going to be using the expertise of JWD's parent company. They've got a lot of experience with big cold chain operations.
That makes sense. Speaking of partnerships, it looks like EA Technique has finally settled their dispute with Petronas. It was about the lease of the FSU Nautica Moir vessel.
Yeah, they reached a settlement. They haven't said how much the payoff was, but this should help EA Technique get some much-needed cash flow.
That's good. They're trying to leave their PN17 status, right?
Exactly. They're on track to do that by Q1 2025. This settlement means they can focus on their core businesses, like marine transportation and offshore storage.
Got it. Now to a company that's having a good year. Alliance Bank is feeling good about FY 2025.
They are, and they're projecting some impressive numbers, 10% loan growth and an ROE over 10%.
Wow, that's ambitious. What's making them so optimistic?
Well, their CEO is saying there are strong economic signals, like strong loan growth across all sectors, growing consumption, and a big jump in tourists. Their credit card spending is at record highs now. It's over RM 400 million each month, and balances are up 35% year on year.
That's great. It really shows that the market is moving in the right direction. Now to a company that's taking a proactive approach to sustainability. FGV Holdings is partnering with the Malaysian Palm Oil Board.
Right. This partnership is all about supporting independent smallholders. They're helping them meet global sustainability standards, specifically the Malaysian Sustainable Palm Oil Standards and the European Union Deforestation Regulation.
So it's about making sure those smallholders can compete globally.
Exactly.
Okay.
This could really boost FGV's own sustainability profile, too, which would open doors to those premium palm oil markets. It's good for everyone.
Nice. Last but not least, let's look at the semiconductor sector. Sentiment is still good, but it seems like it's cooled off a little bit.
Right. The Malaysia Semiconductor Industry Association, or MSIA, did a survey. 44% of companies said they're optimistic about how they'll do in the first quarter of 2025. That's down from what it was before. But 66% are still optimistic about the overall 2025 outlook.
So they're cautiously optimistic.
Yeah. But it's not all smooth sailing. They're still dealing with talent shortages, market competition, and geopolitical tensions, especially between the U.S. and China about semiconductor policies.
A lot to think about there. Some positive things in several sectors, but also some potential problems to keep an eye on.
For sure. It's a dynamic market. Staying informed is super important. Let's look at some broader economic trends next.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, so let's talk about some broader economic trends. There was a study that came out recently that talked about premature deindustrialization in Malaysia.
Oh, wow. What does that mean, and what's the problem with that?
Well, it basically means that the manufacturing sector, it's not contributing as much to the overall economy as it used to. This shift to services,
Hmm?
it happens in a lot of developing economies, but the concern is that it might be too early for Malaysia.
So they're losing their manufacturing base.
Yeah.
But they haven't fully transitioned to a more, I don't know, knowledge-based or high-tech economy yet.
Yeah, exactly. The Khazanah Research Institute, they did this study,
Yeah.
and they said this trend, it could be a big problem for Malaysia's green industrialization goals. Because usually you need a strong manufacturing sector to really develop and scale up those green technologies.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what are they suggesting to fix this?
Well, they're saying that Malaysia needs some strong industrial policies. Policies that encourage people to invest in high-value green technology production. Maybe things like tax breaks, subsidies, or even direct funding from the government for research and development in these areas.
Right. You mentioned talent shortages in the semiconductor sector earlier. Could that be because of this deindustrialization?
It's definitely possible. You know, if young people see manufacturing as a dying industry, they might not want to work in those fields. And then that leads to a talent shortage,
Yeah.
which then hurts growth and innovation.
It's a tough cycle to break. And speaking of disruptions, that statistic about AI and jobs, that was pretty scary.
Yeah, they're saying over 30% of jobs in Malaysia could be affected by AI in the next 10 years. So we really need to start focusing on reskilling and upskilling people.
But it's not all bad news, right? AI is creating new jobs, too.
Of course, Chang Kong, the Science, Technology, and Innovation Minister. He said that we need to retrain over 600,000 workers in the next 3 to 5 years just to stay competitive. And by 2030, we'll need another 500,000 skilled workers, especially in tech.
So it's really about adapting,
Mm-hmm.
making sure people have the skills for these new jobs that are coming up.
Exactly. Okay, let's switch gears a bit. Let's talk about some political and global news that could affect the Malaysian economy. Remember the Kuala Lumpur-Singapore high-speed rail project? The one that was put on hold?
Yeah. What happened?
Well, it might be back on.
Really? That's a huge project.
It is. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim announced that they're willing to restart it, but there's a catch. They want the private sector to run it. The government doesn't want to be involved much at all.
So a new way of financing these big projects.
Exactly. They're basically asking for proposals from the private sector. Singapore seems open to it. But it all comes down to money. Will the private sector take on that risk?
On a different note, Malaysia and Singapore have finally made that special economic zone official, the one linking Johor and Singapore.
That's right. And they've got some big plans for it. They want to get 50 projects going in the first 5 years and 100 within the first decade. They're offering special tax rates and stuff to get investments.
That's awesome. What kind of impact could that have?
They're saying it could create 100,000 jobs and add US $26 billion every year to the Malaysian economy by 2030. It's a big deal.
Definitely something to watch. Now, some news that might not be so great for some folks. Malaysia is adding taxes to some imports from China and Indonesia. It's polyethylene terephthalate, or PE.
Yeah. These duties, they range from 6.33% to 37.44%. They started on January 7th, and they'll last for 120 days. The Ministry of Investment, Trade, and Industry, they started an investigation because a local producer said these imports were being priced unfairly.
So it's to protect local businesses.
Okay.
What's next?
Well, they'll make a final decision by May 6th. This could really affect people who import PET from China and Indonesia.
Got it. Changing gears again. It looks like MRT Corp, the company that runs Kuala Lumpur's mass rapid transit system. They're trying to find new ways to pay for projects.
Yeah, they're looking at public-private partnerships, or PPPs. This could really change how big infrastructure projects are done in Malaysia. It could mean more opportunities for the private sector.
Let's move offshore now. Petronas is doing a study on untapped resources in the Malay Basin.
Right, that basin's off the coast of peninsular Malaysia.
Yeah.
It's already produced over 9 billion barrels of oil. But they think there might be even more to find.
Wow. So there's still potential there. What else are they looking at?
Well, besides oil and gas, Petronas thinks the basin could be a hub for carbon capture and storage, which is a big part of the global push for sustainable energy.
Interesting. Finally. Some good news on the diplomacy front. Malaysia and Singapore are going to start talking again about some issues they've had for a while.
Yeah, they're going to try to work out some tough topics, like water supply, maritime borders,
Yeah.
and airspace. These are all sensitive areas, but it's good that they're willing to talk.
Definitely a step in the right direction. So we covered a lot. Investment opportunities, big economic trends, political news, and global developments that could affect Malaysia.
A lot for investors to think about. The Malaysian market is definitely exciting. Lots of opportunities, but also some challenges coming up.
Okay. Let's wrap up by talking about what stood out to us the most from today. So much news today. What really stood out to you?
For me, it has to be that high-speed rail project possibly coming back. The KL Singapore one, that could be huge, not just for transportation, but for the whole region. If the private sector actually makes it happen, the economic impact could be massive.
I agree. That's a big one. It shows people are confident about the future of the region, but also Perodua's sales numbers. Those are hard to ignore.
Yeah.
They're really dominating the car market in Malaysia.
Yeah, for sure. It also shows that the consumer market in Malaysia is strong. People are buying cars, which means they're feeling good about the economy.
And it's not just cars. We're seeing growth in other areas too, especially things that are sustainable and ethically sourced.
Definitely. Companies like FGV Holdings, they're the ones leading the way in sustainable palm oil. They're in a good spot to benefit from that. It shows that doing good for the planet can also be good for business.
Absolutely. And Alliance Bank, they're looking at a really strong FY 2025. That's another positive sign. They're expecting big loan growth, which means businesses are investing and the economy is growing.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that they're focusing so much on digital stuff, virtual credit cards, mobile payments. That's where the whole financial sector is heading.
Right. But of course, there are always risks. We talked about deindustrialization, the impact of AI on jobs, and the problems in the semiconductor industry.
That's right. It's really important for investors to do their research and make sure they have a diverse portfolio. They need to think long term. Don't get caught up in the ups and downs of the market.
Great advice. So as we wrap up our look at the Malaysian market, what's the one thing our listeners should take away?
I think the big thing is Malaysia has a lot to offer investors. There are great opportunities in a lot of different areas: consumer goods, tech, infrastructure, finance. But you have to be smart about it. Understand the potential and the risks. Do your research, stay informed, and invest wisely.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Well, that's it for our deep dive into the Malaysian market today. Hope you all found it helpful.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive. We'll be looking at a different market, finding those hidden gems and figuring out the world of finance.
And don't forget to subscribe to the Malaysia Money Matters podcast for more analysis and insights. We'll keep you ahead of the curve and help you make smart investment decisions. Happy investing. Hey there, thanks for tuning in. If you would like a deeper dive into all the investment opportunities from today's news, subscribe to my newsletter at moneymatters.substack.com. I will be sharing a deeper analysis of the key investment opportunities from today's news, including what makes these opportunities stand out and how they fit into the broader market trends. By subscribing to the Malaysia Money Matters newsletter, you will also get exclusive insights on my watch list and portfolio and fundamental reports on Malaysian listed companies.